Welcome back to the Situation Room, the weekly show that one day hopes to feature in the opening montage of humanity's personal post-apocalyptic movie, with my face being the last thing anyone sees before we cut to black and the words 13 years later appear ominously on screen. Uh-oh. I'm Simon Whistler, and this week we're diving into the endless wars in the Congo and Sudan, while also tunneling into the factional politics in northern Iraq's Kurdish region. And if that wasn't enough excavation-based metaphors for you, we're first shoveling spadefuls of knowledge at you as we attempt to uncover an answer to the burning question: is Britain about to plunge into civil war? Okay, as always, timestamps are below, and now let's take the first question. The next British Civil War. Hydrating for this one, it's going to be important. Adrian Clark 2734 is a spicy one. Could you give us your 2 cents on what's happening in the UK at the moment, and whether or not you think there's any merit to the idea that the peaceful / racist / xenophobic protests, or already said to be civil unrest, may devolve into full-scale civil war? Actually, this is a question that we get asked a lot. For whatever reason, a lot of people online right now seem really invested in the idea that the United Kingdom is going to plunge into civil war as a result of mass protests and backlash over migration. Now, certainly, the UK has experienced recent unrest. The summer riots of 2024 were the largest in scale since the riots of 2011, which themselves were considered, quote, the worst week of public disorder to hit Britain for over 200 years. 2025 has seen its own rumblings, with mass protests outside hotels housing migrants in England, the burning of foreigners' residences in Northern Ireland, and apocalyptic warnings from senior government figures, including Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, who claimed parts of the North were so angry they could go up in flames, and that's a quote. Now squint, and you might find yourself recalling that classic line from Alexis de Tocqueville, uttered mere weeks before the revolutions of 1848 plunged Europe into chaos. Quote, "This, gentlemen, is my profound conviction. I believe that we are at this moment sleeping on a volcano." He's probably said it in French, though. But here is the part where we pour some cold water over this British Vesuvius. While it is conceivable there will be more unrest in Britain, we need to emphasize there is a world of difference between unrest and, to quote the question again, full-scale civil war. For the UK to slip into civil war, you would need at least 2 armed factions, or a situation whereby it was likely significant segments of the police and military would refuse orders and turn their weapons on the government. Now, neither of that seems to be in place at the moment. The British Armed Forces strain to be non-political to a fault, while the police are remarkably united in cracking down hard on violent protest. The SAF and RSF preparing for a showdown on the streets of Khartoum. This ain't. Now, compare this to the situation in 1914, the last time Britain conceivably was on the verge of full-scale civil war. In that era, you had hundreds of thousands of people mustering in armed militias and swaths of the military signing pledges to defy orders should they be asked to enforce the lightning rod issue of the day, Irish Home Rule. The only reason the whole thing didn't go up in flames was because everything got derailed by a world war breaking out. Now, of course, a conflict didn't need to consume the entire nation to be destructive. The Troubles in Northern Ireland killed nearly 4,000 people across 30 years and cost eye-watering sums of money as bombs shattered everything from the London Stock Exchange to the city of Manchester. It is a stretch to imagine a similar low-intensity conflict breaking out, one in which non-state actors engage in bombings and shootings while the military carries out bloody reprisals. Perhaps it could happen, but even this seems unlikely, at least at a scale similar to the Troubles. Northern Irish society at that time had a sharp sectarian divide, and the level of discrimination Catholics had suffered for decades was far beyond anything anyone in modern Britain experiences. There were also major inciting incidents with no current equivalent. The Battle of Bogside, for example, or the murder by British security forces of 13 unarmed civilians during Bloody Sunday. And well, it's here that we get to the thing about civil conflicts. Absent an elite power struggle or a battle between military factions, it would be regular people doing the killing. And no matter how pissed off you are, no matter how much you love to punch the guys in charge right on the nose, there is a big difference between that feeling and actually picking up a gun or a bomb and setting out to end someone's life. Unless ordinary Brits genuinely believe the state is oppressing them to an intolerable degree and killing their friends and neighbours, then they are unlikely to make the leap. After all, we've covered plenty of incidents of mass civil unrest on this channel, like New Caledonia in 2024, Kenya in 24 and 25, or Indonesia, well, just last week, and the vast majority do not lead to anything that could be reasonably called a full-scale civil war. And when they do, such as with Syria in 2011 or Myanmar in 2021, it has been in the context of draconian authoritarian regimes that torture and mass murder protesters. And no matter what you think about Keir Starmer, you'd have to be really stupid to believe that his government is on par with the Assad dictatorship or Myanmar's junta. All right? Again, this does not mean that all is well in Britain. There could be more riots, more burnings of migrant hotels, more clashes between police and protesters. But there is a big difference between outbreaks of disorder and the UK suddenly becoming the next Sudan. Britain today is angry, yeah, but plenty of societies have been angry before without erupting into conflict. Let's hope everyone in the UK just drinks some tea and calms the down. Whatever happened to the Situation Room? Okay, after that, let's take one from, oh my, Barando da. Maybe. Probably added some extra syllables there, who we chose as representative of a number of comments that we received. Quote, please return to the old Situation Room. The news you present should be you and your team's choice. Viewers might not ask the most important events and changes that are happening right now, and I watch this especially to learn about those. Well, now let's answer this. Well, our current goal is to increase the number of standalone videos on underreported conflicts and events across the channel. I mean, just last week, we covered the protests in Indonesia, updates on peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and what we thought was an interesting in-depth look at Saudi Arabia's military. Now, as things move forward, we want to expand that content even more. And that has kind of negated the need for the old format of the Situation Room. We would just be repeating things from the standalone videos. But, look, we do take your point that our team might be focused on things that our audience is missing. So in light of that, I asked a question of Evan. Evan, what's an under-radar event that happened this week that everyone should know about? See what I did there? Evan wrote the answer. We're going to go to northern Iraq to answer that question, Simon, with the tale. This feels very weird. With the tale of a family rivalry that just might doom any remaining hope of an independent Kurdish nation. We need a bit of context to understand what's happening here. The unrecognized, stateless entity of Kurdistan is made up of about 25 to 30 million Kurds in the Middle East, spread between territory in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Now, for a very long time, Kurds presided over a movement to create a sovereign nation. But over the last year, that mission has become a lot more complicated. Turkey recently reached a disarmament deal with the nation's Kurdish paramilitaries, who are expected to integrate with the nation at least somewhat, while the fate of the Kurdish-led autonomous zone in northeast Syria, Rojava, is an open question right now. Iran, of course, is Iran. It's not a very easy ask for Kurds to try and seek independence there. Iraqi Kurdistan, by comparison, is doing all right. It's a semi-autonomous zone with recognition in the Iraqi constitution, and right now, it's looking like it'll be the most stable home for Kurdish autonomy for a little while. The problem, however, is the internal dynamics of Iraqi Kurdistan can get violent. In this part of the world, there are two dominant political parties, the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, or PUK, and the Kurdistan Democratic Party, or KDP, who we don't need to worry about today. But there are also lots of other parties growing in strength at a moment when Iraqi Kurdistan is sort of reorganizing itself politically. And this week, the PUK's internal security agency announced that it had uncovered a plot to assassinate the party's leader, Baf al-Talabani. According to the PUK, 6 of Talabani's own guards had been ordered and apparently agreed to kill him, which they'd do by renting an apartment in a high-rise building near the party headquarters, setting up a sniper's nest with a direct view into Talabani's office, and eliminating him. They'd follow up that sniper shot with a drone attack, reportedly using training that some of the group members had picked up in Ukraine. The real kicker, however, is the person that those guards said they were taking orders from, Talabani's own cousin, Lahur Talabani. Lahore is the leader of the People's Front, a rising party that was founded less than 2 years ago and currently holds 2 out of 100 seats in the Kurdish parliament. Lahore Talabani himself played a key role in the fight against the Islamic State, and he left the larger PUK party after a leadership struggle with his cousin, who basically pulled off an internal coup and threw himself out of the party after they had been made co-leaders. When the assassination plot was uncovered, it set off street battles between the supporters of each of the cousins in and around the hotel, while Lahore Talabani, the leader of the smaller breakaway party, had been staying at the time. After several hours of fighting, Lahore surrendered with 5 people, including a Talabani family member, and around 20 others wounded. According to security forces, over 160 loyalists were arrested. More than the conflict between the 2 cousins themselves, the incident comes with the potential to set off wider violence in Iraqi Kurdistan, either as this rivalry plays out or as other armed political factions see and exploit an opportunity to violently progress their own agendas. So, for this week, if you'd like a very niche conflict story to keep track of, then hopefully that will do. And let us know in the comments if you'd like this regular segment where I ask Evan a question that everybody should be following. So we'll make that a weekly thing if you like. Let's carry on. Congo's Eternal War. Finn Boltfer asks us, is the conflict over, as much as an African conflict can be, between Rwanda and the DRC? To which Evan says, no. No, absolutely not. To be clear, this is a situation where we'd really love to be giving good news, but as somebody who's been watching this peace process very closely, it is not an exaggeration to state that as of now, our worst fears are being confirmed. First off, even though this conflict is ultimately between the DRC and Rwanda, the battles on the ground are between the DRC and the M23 rebel group, and the difference matters much more than the peace process has seemed to acknowledge. You see, M23 takes its orders from Rwanda in the same way that the Houthis or Hamas take their orders from Iran. At the end of the day, they're still a separate entity with priorities, objectives, and leadership that can diverge from Rwanda's interests. And not only that, but the entire peace process so far is shaken out as if Rwanda, M23, the Congo, and the United States trying to get international observers to lose the plot so that they can set up mineral extraction deals and stop caring about whether or not the conflict restarts. Although the DRC did agree to peace with Rwanda, that peace ultimately doesn't mean anything. Rwanda has always denied sending support, including literally thousands of its own soldiers to fight alongside M23, and it wasn't made to acknowledge anything different in the peace deal it signed. By Rwanda's telling, Paul Kagame's neighbors in the Congo simply hallucinated a war, and good old Kagame agreed to sign a scrap of paper to put his mentally addled counterparts at ease. The negotiations that really mattered were a series of talks in Qatar that would have done a deal between the Congo and M23 directly, but wouldn't you know it, as soon as the meaningless Congo-Rwanda deal was signed, direct peace talks started to break down. To say that the ceasefire in the Congo is holding right now is to rely on the most extreme of technicalities. Whilst Congolese troops are not fighting M23 at scale right now, large and powerful pro-government militias are as actively engaged in combat as ever. At the same time, M23 has been accused of the killing of hundreds of civilians, crimes that the pro-government militias are also guilty of. As that's been going on, conflict monitors have pointed out that both the DRC and M23 are surging troops back into the areas that formerly constituted front lines, anticipating an imminent return to violence. In fact, M23 withdrew from ceasefire talks all the way back on August the 18th, and even before then, there were practically zero indicators that the peace process would resolve, against every indicator that it was about to fall apart. The thing to account for in this conflict is the extreme corruption on both sides. Quite frankly, the Congolese government doesn't care about what happens to the people of its eastern regions. It cares about the potential loss of lucrative resources if M23 captures large chunks of land, and it cares that M23 stays away from the capital, since if all these corrupt Congolese elites are overthrown or killed, they can no longer turn a profit. Nor does Rwanda particularly care about overthrowing the Congolese government if it can instead enjoy massive profits from lands that it helped its proxy force to capture. In that sense, the US brokered ceasefire between the two sides is a cynical but potentially effective fix. The Congolese elite get to enjoy lucrative US investment and extraction deals to make up for and exceed the value of its lost territory, while Rwanda gets to legitimize its proxy takeover of a large and mineral-rich stretch of land. The US didn't broker a peace, it created a veneer of peace in which a whole bunch of rich people could sign deals to make themselves a lot richer without attracting the global scrutiny that comes with trying to develop an active war zone. The problem, of course, is that M23's objectives remain its own, and while Rwanda is happy to sit on its profits, M23 is neither an ideologically neutral actor nor a group that's content to just sit subordinate to Rwanda forever. And right now, M23 holds too much leverage over Rwanda as the group actually in control of all of this land for Rwanda to simply hand-wave M23 away as it tries to reopen the conflict. In the last few days, M23 began an advance towards the Congolese interior, and although the armed militias have been dealing with them for now, they're working their way up a highway where the Congo can't allow them to become entrenched. If all else holds steady, that crawling advance isn't likely to last another 2 weeks before the Congo is forced to respond and the war is back on. Sudan's never-ending horror. Next up, a succinct and depressing one from Baseball Bob 2000. Will the Sudan ever end? And we're going to go ahead there and assume that the word war is missing from that question. For this one, we kick the question over to our resident Sudan watcher, Morris, for an equally depressing response, and here is his take. The Sudan war could end not just tomorrow, but within the next hour, and it would require nothing more than a few words from one man, Mohammed bin Zayed. That's because MBZ is the head of the United Arab Emirates, the outside power that has been instrumental in keeping the paramilitary rapid support forces in the fight. As documented by multiple media reports, a UN investigation, and attested to by Sudan's official government, the UAE has since 2023 shipped weapons and money to the RSF through not-so-secret air bases in Chad and more recently South Sudan, even as the paramilitaries carry out a genocide in Darfur. While there are other malign actors outside fueling the conflict, notably Iran, Russia, and General Haftar in Libya, none are as key as the UAE. Were Abu Dhabi to suspend all support, then the RSF's war effort would implode, and while the opposing Sudanese armed forces are not angels, they bombarded civilian areas and are openly aligned with Islamist groups, they are at least not currently carrying out a genocide. Sadly, though, the UAE withdrawing its support for the RSF is not going to happen. Abu Dhabi is engaging in a modern version of the Great Game in Africa, building a network of alliances that stretches across the Horn through Somaliland, Ethiopia, and Kenya. The RSF is an integral part of that, a part that also controls the majority of Sudan's gold mines from which it ships tons of bullion to UAE. Mohammed bin Zayed also seems to feel he owes the paramilitaries for backing his joint intervention in Yemen with Saudi Arabia. So there you go. The Sudan war could easily end if MBZ suddenly decides to cut the RSF loose. The fact that he won't is a tragedy for all of Sudan. The team's backgrounds, and now Michael Boss3329 asks us, what made you decide to go into this line of work, and what degree would you recommend for someone looking into this line of work? And Evan says, I was a viewer before I was a writer for the channel, working an awake overnight job where I had lots of time and could try my hand at freelancing on the side. I was already spending the idle hours of that overnight job doing deep dives into anything that would keep me engaged enough to stay awake, and I realized that instead of just learning for my own benefit, I could try and find some way to write about the topics that interested me. I got lucky with my choice to reach out to Simon, apparently at the right time, as he was willing to take a chance on me. And from there, the rest is history. As for the degree I'd recommend, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and political science, plus a master's degree in criminal justice that once upon a time I thought I'd use. I don't know that I'd recommend that specific path, but I'd recommend that you study the thing that makes you curious, even if it doesn't directly relate to this type of work. Writing for WarFronts, I don't think I'd ever directly taken any knowledge I learned in my undergrad degree and made it a part of a script, but I know that it helped to provide a lens of geopolitics that I use every day. Morris says, I was the one who suggested this channel to Simon way back on a channel about biographies. I wrote a joke into a script, I think Louis XIV, about how we'd need to launch a new channel called Warographics to keep up with all the battles we were covering. Oh, and a separate channel called Explored. Ah, yes. My YouTube login screen, this is Simon, not Morris's reply, is just like a boulevard of broken dreams, like channels that I tried to start that never went anywhere. The ones you see are the ones that work. The others just died a death. After that one, we decided we needed a replacement, so Morris suggested that we launch a war channel. We went live just before Christmas 21, initially as a military history channel. I won't retell everything that happened next, but the basic version is I was part of the push along with Simon and Evan in autumn 2022 to try pivoting to modern conflicts. Our first video about Ukraine's lightning-fast liberation of Kharkiv Oblast did nearly 4 million views. And we never looked back, did we? In other words, I got into this line of work through a mixture of being interested in war history and modern geopolitics, being a decent enough writer, and being in the right place at the right time. Not sure there's a degree that can replicate that mixture, but in an age in which AI is upending the content and journalism industries, I'd suggest studying something you really enjoy and are passionate about. Boring answer. But it's better to spend the money doing something you love rather than something you grind at hoping to make bank, only discover all the entry-level jobs have been replaced by chatbots. Oh, it's so depressing. My answer is I absolutely accidentally fell into this. I have a undergraduate degree in business management. Then I did postgrad in law, which in the UK we call it a conversion course, where you do like a really intense year to basically give yourself the equivalent of a bachelor's law degree. I don't recommend that at all for getting into this. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed studying both of those things. Probably law more than business. I guess business management maybe helps because I kind of run a business, but mostly I kind of... I know it's going to sound incredibly cringe coming from a 38-year-old man, but I kind of manage with vibes. I'm more like do it by feel, which is probably a terrible thing, seeing as I actually have a degree in it. But maybe that does help. I don't know. There's an absolute non-answer for you. Absolutely by accident. Which conflicts do each... Betsy Johnson, 9699 asks, which conflicts do each of you find most intriguing / concerning? If you were checking on updates for all the conflicts on the world right now, which would you check first? I don't know, I'll go first on this one because I know someone's going to take it, probably Morris. But it's Sudan. No one cares about Sudan. It's crazy. There's so much death. No one cares. You open up the BBC right now, you open up CNN, I promise you there's nothing about Sudan. It's crazy. All right, Morris's answer, which I know is going to be Sudan. I can already see it loading in the prompter. He says the answer has to be Sudan. It is fundamentally insane that a gigantic proxy war has killed over 150,000 people, torn Africa's third largest nation in two again, and is threatening to spill over into other nations like South Sudan and Chad, and nobody talks about it. I know you shouldn't mistake anecdotes for data, but I met someone about a month ago who told me, what are you talking about? There's no war in Sudan. Either they were expertly trolling me or one of the biggest conflicts of this century really is invisible to the general public. As such, I just kind of feel it's my duty to check in on it as much as possible and try to get updates onto this channel for you all to see. Yeah, exactly. Evan says, right now it comes down to Ukraine. We aren't particularly close to a resolution in either direction, but however this war shakes out, it's going to change the way that the entire world works for the next several decades. It already is. The only other conflict of a comparable scale that's relatively likely to happen would be a war over Taiwan that draws in the US and the nations of the Indo-Pacific. But right now, since that's not happening, my answer's got to be Ukraine because of the way that I expect several decades of history to be bent around its resolution. And they say I should put in my answer here, but I already did it. I stole Morris's, but I didn't want to steal it before, afterwards. Next one is for me, apparently. Baba Ridger asks, Simon has talked about liking off-roading. Is that something you do often? Have I? I mean, yes, I do. Mostly, I'm just one of those people who likes building things. So I bought a Land Cruiser, a Toyota Land Cruiser 200, maybe 2 years ago. And I've gone on various trips, off-roading and overlanding and stuff in it. It's got a big rooftop tent or stuff, and mostly I just like building it. I like adding things to it, like adding a tent, adding some big tires, and by adding them, I mean sending them to the person who adds them. But I like choosing them and like building this thing. That's my answer. Time travel vacations. If you could travel to any historical event or period, which would you choose? Evan says, I'm genuinely believe that we live in the most pleasant period of human history overall, and that's ever been. I like having stable access to the global economy. I like having the internet. I love having access to clean running water. And there's no other point in history where you could have all three. That said, if I have to go to some other time period, I'd love to live in the city of Cordoba in Spain in the 10th century. All right, Evan, deep pull, mate. The merging points of Christian and Islamic culture, science, education, and philosophy. If you haven't visited Cordoba in the modern day, make sure to schedule a visit. Morris says, I would never travel into a single point in history before the eradication of smallpox, which narrows my window down to a maximum stretch of 45 years. So I guess maybe something from the 1980s. Perhaps I could learn the Russian for, no guys, seriously, don't touch that button, and then travel to Chernobyl on April the 26th, 1986. Or if that's not allowed, maybe I'll check out the premiere of The Empire Strikes Back, which took place a mere 10 days after the WHO declared smallpox eradicated. I just need to see the first ever audience reactions to Luke, I Am Your Father.
Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, okay. I think my one, I'll twist the question a little bit. I wouldn't travel to the past because, like, you just touch something, like you move a pen or something, and I don't know, it somehow changes the whole of the future and then you don't exist anymore, right? So I'd go to the future. I know it said to some point in history, but I'm cheating. It's a time travel question. They're not real. I'd go to the future to see what it's like. I'm fascinated. I like that. What a shitty answer. That's the end of the episode. Thank you for being here.